So
Yeah, Carmela. Oh my God, what a character.
yeah, a brilliant character. It's one of those where, just like Christopher, there's so much depth to it. I mean, because obviously you make videos on characters, I make videos on characters. You could you could flip you can make a video explaining why Carmela is an angel, and the next day you can make a video explaining why she's an absolute horrible devil. That's the depth of these characters and the nuance of them, and that's actually something
Yeah,
I like
that's what
doing.
makes the show so great.
That's one of
Yeah,
my favorite things to do. Probably even more so than actually making theories on the Sopranos, is getting a character and trying to flip it. So what's the kind of public
just
consciousness?
dissecting them. Yeah,
Yeah. So everybody hates Phil. So I kind of, and this was actually something I actually genuinely believed, that I kind of thought that people are not really seeing his side of the story. So I basically made it. I think it's called the case for Phil Leotardo, where I just kind of run through what would have been going through his mind, as in Omerta and doing 20 years, which obviously he keeps going on about it, but it's still a big thing to do. And he comes out and he's seeing people crying at weddings, who's supposed to be his boss. He's seeing people flipping, and bosses who are having panic attacks. Obviously, it's no fault of Tony's, but for him, in his mind, in his supposed macho mind, he's thinking, look at all this weakness around me. What did I do 20 years? I lost 20 years of my life. And there's loads of
yeah,
funny things about him that I think is kind of sad in a way. It's like when he says, my kid brother Billy, 47 years old, he was just a kid. That's hilarious because he's
the
calling a
kid.
47-year-old a kid. But in a way, it's sad because that meant that Billy would have been 27 when he went away. So obviously he's gone to prison, and life has just kind of skipped 20 years for Phil. So in his mindset, he is just a kid because he's just kind of picked up from where he's left off. So there is things about him that I really like. Another one is Bobby Bacala. This one I was being a bit provocative, but I made a video called "Why You're Wrong About Bobby Bacala," something like that.
Yeah, I
But
watched
because
that video.
what is it? Because I mean, some of it is me trying to create an argument, but some of it is I was a little bit peeved about how everybody just says Bobby's such an angel and all this kind of stuff. Because I was like, hang on,
Yeah, he was the only one who didn't have a Gumar.
yeah, all of that. And it's like, if you had this character in a different show, completely unrelated to crime, he'd seem like the devil. It's only because he's surrounded by people who are just so much worse that he comes off like a big cuddly teddy bear. He's still involved in so many rackets. And one of the points I made was that he was in that kind of cuddly, gooey teddy bear role because he hadn't yet had the opportunity. There was a line I think I mentioned in the video, something like, "Wealth and power do not uh, corrupt a man; they only reveal his true character." And it was only when Bobby had that wealth, that power, in season 6, that we saw the real Bobby come out, the real Bobby manifest, and he was an asshole in the final season. And that's the state in
Yeah,
which
it
he
was a
died.
really big
That's Bobby
dick.
Bacala. Bobby Bacala is not season 1 Bobby Bacala. That guy's finished. When he killed that guy, um, there was something changed. There's that brilliant scene where he hugs his daughter, I think it is, and he looks out at the sunset, and you kind of think it's almost as if his soul is flying away, because now you're just one of them, Bobby. You've done the deed, you've you've stepped over the threshold, and unfortunately, you've become one of them. And that was kind of my take on the character, and a lot of people were really pissed off with me saying that he wasn't all that. But that's the brilliance of these characters. I've got a few other ones that I want to do. One of them is and this is going to be really hard, is Richie Aprile. I mean, how do you flip the
Yeah, I
switch
have
on a
a
character
video
like
too in
that?
mind about him.
Because he's
I
really
know. I just
he's scary, and he's just one of those where he's like a brick wall, and he
Manson
just
lips.
can you imagine can you imagine him sitting with Dr. Melfi, her trying to get through to him and to his side? It's just not going to happen. So that, I mean, that's one of my favorite things to do. I really like kind of dissecting the characters and trying to flip in it on, so kind of characters that everybody loves, making a video on why you should hate them. Characters that everybody hates, making a video on why you shouldn't be so hard on them, things like that. So where do you actually get your ideas for new videos from then? How do they come up? How do they manifest?
Well, I do read a lot of like essays and thesis, or not thesis, but like, yeah, like just really deep articles and studies about the show. About, like, I did a video about like masculinity in the Sopranos. I thought that was really like interesting. Some of it is just like my own thought, and then I see it online. You know, sometimes it'll come up. I'm in like lots of Reddit groups, Facebook groups. Um, yeah, I have like textbooks over there about the show too. It just kind of just comes together.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. I mean, I'm the same. Sometimes you're thinking about the show, aren't you? And an
Oh,
idea just
always.
pops in
I'm
your head.
constantly writing down ideas. Yeah,
Yeah, I do the same. I text my ideas to myself on my phone just so I have them there. Then I might think about them for
in
a
my
few
notes.
days,
Yep.
and then I'll do a bit of research. Then I'll write them down. Some of the video ideas are already well known theories, and some of them are just things that you just think about by watching it because that's what the show gives you. It gives you so much to ponder on, to chew on, basically. So, aside from The Sopranos, then, do you have any other shows that you're really into?
No,
No, not at all.
no. Yeah, it's like I said on Steve asked me the same thing on Talking Sopranos, and he was like, Are you interested in any other shows?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "Just the Sopranos." I mean, I got it all. I got the book here. I got magazines. I got the trading cards. I mean, I'm like obsessed with the show because I think nothing will ever come close to it. Nothing ever will, in my opinion.
Wow.
It's the greatest television show of all time. And I mean, obviously, I watch other shows. Sometimes I'll try and watch other shows. Like I recently started Dexter, and I'm like, yeah, I can't really get into it. I don't know. So I've never seen Breaking Bad,
Mm.
but I gotta give it a try if everyone says it is what it is, and The Wire too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very far behind when it comes to TV shows because I'm more of a movie man. I've watched so many films and all the big gangster movies, and then The Sopranos was kind of the first TV show that I properly got into, and obviously it was an amazing experience. I've seen a few others here and there. Game of Thrones, Boardwalk Empire, one season of Peaky Blinders. I never watched Breaking Bad yet. I'm actually watching The Wire right now because that's the one that everybody
Nice.
says. Because Breaking Bad is a kind of different kind of show, but they always say if there's anything that can be compared to The Sopranos, they always mention The Wire. And in the beginning, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's good, but I mean, The Sopranos is The Sopranos, but I'm in kind of like first couple episodes of season 5, which is the final season, and I can see why
Wow.
people say it's comparable to The Sopranos. It's very different. It's I mean, you can't. I don't want to say if you're going to watch it and then give spoilers away, but I would say give that one a go. It's different, very different, and it takes a long time to get into. Literally, you'll probably be bored in the first couple of episodes, maybe even the first season, because some people say that you just have to get into the first season to introduce the characters, but nothing really happens, which I don't agree with. I really enjoyed the first season. Then second season, um, the story kind of veers off into something completely different. It's almost like you're watching a different show. And then the kind of thing that people say is the story actually starts from season 3. So you have to get through 2 seasons to actually get to the start of the show. And also, that's so weird. But then I watched the show and then I understand now. I get it. And once from season 3, it just doesn't let up. It just goes and it doesn't need to introduce characters or, give you scenes of kind of explaining why this is happening or why that's happening because you already know from the previous 2 seasons. So it just goes and doesn't stop. But it's very good. The Wire. Uh, to say is it better than Sopranos? Is the Sopranos better than The Wire? It's one of those where if you're talking about the two in the same sentence and you're and ahhing, that just tells you all you need to know about both. But I probably because of the mob stuff, which I really like, and the characters, it'll always be The Sopranos for me. But the Wire is there.
Yeah.
It's there somewhere in that kind of stratosphere. So maybe that's one worth checking out. And what your YouTube channel then? So let's go back to the YouTube channel. Obviously, it's called Sopranos Theories. So do you plan on maybe expanding to other movies, other shows, or anything like that, or is it always going to be theories and essays on Sopranos?
Honestly, I thought about that today, and like, I would love to just like dabble into like maybe reviewing films like classics like Goodfellas and Casino, just sharing my take about it. Even
Mm,
The Godfather, even discussing Godfather theories. I know there's like there's a a pretty decent following for The Godfather. So I've thought about it, yeah, and why not? I mean, if people are interested in it, um,
So
yeah, I
would the
mean,
name stay the same then? Because aren't you a little bit boxed in
the
with
name
the
would
name?
stay the same.
All right.
Yeah, I would still keep Soprano Theories. It's
It's
just
actually pretty
like
clever from a marketing perspective because if people are looking for theories, they type in Sopranos theories on YouTube, and your channel logo will be the first thing that comes up, rather than obviously the
thank
Sopranos
you.
theories on there, but you know what I mean. It's actually pretty
Yeah,
clever.
it just like came up when I couldn't sleep, and I was like, man, I want to just start the channel, and then I was like, I need a name. And it's funny, I look at my phone and I wrote down Soprano Theories, and I was like, you know what, that's a good name. I was like, why not?
Yeah. So what's your favorite video of your own then? So do you ever look back at your videos and think, you know what, I knocked it out of the park there. That was a good video.
Um, Probably the masculinity video, the death, the themes of like the Sopranos' dark world of like death, depression, and suicide. That one was really interesting because I basically write like full blown essays,
Hmm.
right? And then I read it into my microphone, and then the one about Christopher Moltisanti, the tragic fall, because he is my favorite character, and I just really wanted to make that great. I put lots of time and effort into that one, and then the one about Christopher, his like divorce with Tony.
Hmm.
Those ones stick out in my mind. I would say those ones. Yeah, especially the Christopher one, the tragic fall. That one was, just editing it. I wanted to make it really as perfect. I mean, I'm kind of like a perfectionist, so I try and make everything as neat and as perfect as can be. And I tried to get really sad music and tried to deliver my voice differently. And
Right.
I thought I did a decent or a good job. I felt like I wanted to do it for Michael Imperioli, as
Wow.
weird as that sounds.
Did you mention that video then in because I don't think you did
I
in your
No, I
Talking
didn't.
Sopranos
And
interview.
as soon as I hung up on the Talking Sopranos, I was so mad because I was like, I forgot to tell him that he was my favorite character, and like I made that video about him, and I was so mad. And like my mom was like, it's okay, and like and told my brother, he's like, it's fine, and I was just like, no. I'm like, that's the one thing I wanted to say. And yeah, I mean, it was, I was nervous, and then, but they were like, don't be nervous, all that stuff. But it was hard, I was like, everyone, people who saw it, like people at work, like, wow, you didn't seem nervous at all. I was like, oh, trust me, I was.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned it on your community post or something as well. You carried yourself really well in that interview. You didn't come off as like starstruck or anything like that. It was a really smooth
Thank you.
conversation between the three of you.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
are you
thank
are
you.
more
Yeah,
clued up and more educated on the Sopranos than the other two, it seemed, because you were firing back with so many little details and things like that. And I think he asked you about the. Did he ask you about the Rihanna, the AJ girlfriend theory? I think Steve did,
yeah.
didn't he? Yeah.
Mm. Michael or Steve, yeah, one of them. Yeah,
So what
he
what
was
uh
funny.
what did you think of? Because I remember you commented on my video about the Talking Sopranos as well. What did you think of the podcast as a whole? Anyway.
Oh, I loved it. Thought it was amazing. Like literally, like one, because it got me through every Monday of quarantine, like lockdown, right? I thought it was so interesting. Like the way that Michael would break it down in like almost like a cinematic level, and he would say, "Oh, the shots here really emphasizing, Tony's downfall or something like that." And like, we saw this back in season 2, or saw this back in season 1, and then he was almost like a professor, like a film professor in that way. And then Steve was just like the casual fan, he's even when I was talking to him and he was like, it was about the ending, and he was like, there's theories about that, and I was like, yeah, it was like 100%. And then like he was talking about mayonnaise, and he was just like the average viewer, like, oh, this guy's this and this guy's that. I don't like this guy, but I like this guy, which was fun, and it made it. I thought it was the perfect fit. Steve was funny and just a casual fan. Michael was more interesting and more on a deeper level of the show and its themes. So yeah, I thought it was awesome. Like I don't listen to podcasts really, and best podcast ever. I mean, it won a Webby.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really because I mean I appreciate it and I got a lot from it. And maybe I was a bit too harsh. I came across too harsh in my video than I intended. But it was one of those where I mean maybe like a lot of people with the many saints, as in they expected one thing, they got another thing. I think that's what it was with me with Talking Sopranos, as in I expected like really deep analytical deep dive, kind of what people on you like me and you do. Um, but it was really more, like casual chat about the show, because I found myself sometimes frustrated, especially with the interviews. The kind of question they've got guys who are on the show or behind the scenes, directors, writers, all this kind of stuff, and there's questions that we've got that we would just be bursting to ask these guys, but a lot of the times they weren't asked. So I mean, I appreciate a lot. I mean, if I watch it now, because I know what it is now, I know what to expect. I know the character of Steve Sharif and Michael Imperioli and the format and all that kind of stuff. I'd enjoy it a lot more now. But it's just on the original run, there was just an element where I thought it's good, but it could have been so much better. If they, and also the not just the duo, but it could have done with tightening up. There was a lot of kind of it could have been edited better, so it could have been a bit more,
Yeah, like
streamlined.
they were rambling on a little bit,
Yeah,
talking about
and it's one
just
of those
random
where
stuff.
you don't always
Milton
have 3 hours to kill to sit through the entire thing to get some, a few
Mm-hmm.
minutes of gold. One of the things that I like that they did in the beginning that they stopped doing was taking extracts of the interviews and posting them as separate videos, just 2 minutes here, 3 minutes there, which I think they should have continued doing because they could have got a lot more views from that. Like I think they did it for Terrence Winter explaining what happened to the Russian. So they
Yeah.
took that and they made a separate video. And
Mm-hmm.
like
Or clips.
the final episode, David Chase was just telling everybody so many different answers to theories, and I'm like, why do we have to sit through 3 hours to get to this amazing part? Why isn't this separate so that people who maybe don't want to or can't sit through the entire thing end up seeing things like that? But
Yeah.
there was a few issues I had here and there, even smaller things like the audio quality of some of the guests, and I wasn't the biggest fan of Steve Sharif. I liked he was quite endearing, especially in his honesty. But I kind of felt as though him and Michael didn't have the right kind of connection and chemistry for dissecting The Sopranos. Obviously, like I said, I was probably expecting something else. Ultimately, it's a casual chat, and Michael is the one who kind of goes and does the deep dives. But I kind of felt as though he was getting put off by his partner, and he ended up giving up somewhere. And even in the end, like he was in his bed in I think the final episode. It's just like he seems
Yeah.
kind of
Well, it's just
past it.
unfortunate because he was on the road, and like the audio quality, it's like it would have been a lot better if there was no COVID. Of course, they could have had people like guests in studio, like how Joe
Yeah,
Rogan does. I
yeah,
mean, it would have been a lot
that's
better. And I feel like I get what you mean, like with their interview style. Like it was very repetitive. It would say, "How did you get on The Sopranos? Was The Sopranos your first gig?" Or did you audition for the show?
did you
Tell us
read
how
for
you got
David
on.
Chase? Yeah.
Did you read for David Chase? And what are you doing now? And it was always the ending, which is fine. I mean, if you have a pattern and it's working, why break it, right?
And I appreciate the fact that for a lot of these Sopranos actors, the Sopranos was just another gig. They might not be as well versed into it. They might not even know what it's about because they would have just done their character, and some of them haven't. Some of the principal cast haven't even seen the show in its entirety. So we can't blame them. But that's actually one of the reasons why I think the interviews with the directors and writers and background people is actually more interesting because they know the show more. Like
Oh yeah.
Terrence Winter, there was another writer, I can't remember what his name was.
Terrence Winter was amazing, and the
Yeah.
audio director or technician was like one of the best interviews
Mm.
because he would talk about the music and how it made like its impact on the show, and if David wanted to use it, or how David would come up with songs and he would just write them down. So
Mm.
yeah, I thought it was awesome.
I'm not saying this to blow smoke up your ass, but I actually thought yours was actually one of the best as well because that was a proper.
Thank you. Yeah, my friends and family said like the same thing.
That's a solid way for. I mean, even the
Thank you so much.
interviewees, because Steve was really, really good as well. He was quite sweet in that interview because he was. It felt as though he was holding himself back from,
In
like,
my interview?
yeah, as in like he wanted you to speak. He's being considerate. He knows he's talking to fans now, So he's not going to start
Or
swearing and going off of one rules.
like a real super fan. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I told them. Yeah, I was like, I'm like a huge. I know I'm a super fan. Yeah. It was just funny. Like I didn't watch it until it came out. Like obviously, and I watched it, and then it was just nice at the end when he said that's a nice young man, because I don't hear that stuff,
Yeah.
right? And they said you're not gonna be able to hear the ends, and you're not gonna be able to hear the beginning, and I was like, wow, it's like that's awesome. And then he actually messaged me on like Instagram and on like my personal account, and
Wow.
it was just like surreal. It was like around Christmas time, and just sharing messages back and forth. Like he very down to earth guy, both of them. You know, Steve, I felt like he didn't really like a lot of people. If you listen to the podcast, he would say, "Oh, I hate Robert De Niro and
Yeah.
Milton Berle," and which is funny. But I mean, to me, he seems like very down to earth.
You know, funny enough, the guy I interviewed, talked about in the beginning of this one, he's actually friends with Steve Sharif in real life. And one of the questions I asked him in that interview, which is going to come out soon, I don't know when it's going to come out, but one of the questions I asked was, why does Steve Sharif hate Robert De Niro so much? Because he's seen the Talking Sopranos podcast as well, so he's well aware of that. But obviously, there's things about Steve that become a running gag, don't they? And you don't even know whether it's genuine or is he just playing it up for the podcast, and is he playing a character? And it's just so many questions about Steve that you just don't know.
Yeah, Steve. I don't know. He was funny, cool dude. Would love to
Yeah.
meet him in person. Have you met anyone in person from the show?
No, because obviously I'm in the UK, so
Well, Dominic Chianese lives over there.
does he really?
Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure they talked about that on the podcast. He lives in like the UK. Yeah,
Wow, I did see
yeah,
his interview, but I must have missed that. He seems like a
yeah.
really nice guy, a really sweet guy. There's a lot of wisdom
Oh
in the
yeah.
things that he says. You can tell that he's
He,
lived a full life and he's got a lot of stories and he's learned a lot
a lot of
from his
stories.
life experiences. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed listening to him.
I've met one cast member, and it was Big Pussy, and it was at like a local comic book store, and you had to deliver to meet him. All you had to do was do a non-perishable food item, and I found out like really late, and I thought it was over, and I walk in, and I was like, oh, I was like, he's not here. And then all of a sudden it was like meeting like Santa Claus. I was like 15, 16, and I hear like this voice in the corner, and he was like, who's that over there? And I was like, holy cow. And he signed this picture for me, and it's like him, and I don't know if you can see it, but it
Yeah.
says like
Wow.
to
Very cool.
Paolo. Yeah, he was like, stay in school, and I was like, okay. So he was really nice. Yeah, seemed like a really cool dude. Yeah.
That's great. So what about movies then? You know, what are your favorite films? Are you like a film man? Is it just The
I'm
Sopranos and
no,
Sopranos only?
I'm a film man. Yeah, I
Because you,
went
you
to
mentioned in the beginning,
film.
you know,
I
films
went
like
to school
North
for
by
film.
Northwest. So I know that you're a guy who knows films. If you're mentioning films like that, you know, those all kind of Alfred
Yeah,
Hitchcock movies.
yeah, I love Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, my favorite movie of all time is Goodfellas, hands down. It is so good. I mean, just like its production design, like its setting, and I mean, I love Casino too, and
Hmm.
they're almost like The Sopranos. They're so funny. I mean, at least to me, they are. I love the lines, you know, where it's like in Joe Pesci's like, I'll dig the hole. He's like, you don't think I've never dug a hole before? And I mean, Goodfellas, Casino, Bronx Tale. I mean, who doesn't love like Shawshank Redemption?
Hmm.
You know, Rear Window is like one of my favorite films of all time. I'm a sucker for film noir, and I love film noirs in general. So I think like, my favorite film noir is probably I love Sunset Boulevard. L.A. Confidential is
Yeah,
highly,
great films.
in my opinion, I think it's underrated. It doesn't get brought up enough. So good. That one's one of my favorite films of all time. Rear Window, of course. I love the film. If you're interested in film noir, I love Mildred Pierce. That's a really good one.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's very good. I just love film noirs how they grab you in the beginning, and then you gotta wait all the way till the very end.
Yeah,
The
there's always some
Killers
kind
is a
of
good
dark
film.
irony or something that just makes them. I mean, you know, the Maltese Falcon or Double Indemnity, which is one I really like.
Oh, Double Indemnity. Yeah, that one's awesome.
Yeah,
That one's one of my favorite films of all time too. That one is like they just for their time. It's like they're brilliant. It's like how are they coming up with these films at that time?
Mm. Yeah,
That
I mean,
one,
it's one of those. I mean, it's not. They don't have special effects, so they have to rely on the acting and the writing. And
yeah,
it was a dark time during America's history then, and the films got darker. And yeah, film noir is amazing. I really love that little subgenre in the 40s and 50s that we got from there, and the neo
yeah,
noirs that developed during the Hollywood New Wave, Chinatown, all these kind of films. Like you
yeah.
said,
Chinatown was
LA
good. Yeah, that's a
Confidential.
good one. Not my favorite, but it's okay. I mean, I don't know. I just love the black and white look, but Chinatown's very
Mm,
good as well. Yeah. I like Italian. I mean, obviously I'm Italian, so I love Italian neorealism.
mm,
Films like Bicycle Thieves are awesome.
yeah.
Um, there's a few more. I can't remember the name. It's like Antonio something, but it's like they're very obviously they're real, but it's about like the war and stuff like that. Films like that are awesome. I love a good western too.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
love westerns. I love the spaghetti westerns. My
yeah.
favorite film is actually The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly by Sergio
Oh,
Leone.
really?
Yeah, and
Nice.
Once Upon a Time in the West as well, and especially for a few dollars more, which holds a special place in my heart. That one doesn't get talked enough about because people always talk about Once Upon a Time in the West, America, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but people seem to forget always about For a Few Dollars More, which is,
Hmm.
I think it's equally as good as the other ones.
I'm for the western. I love The Searchers.
Oh
It's a
yeah,
good one.
great film, yeah.
Yeah, and I love what is it? High Noon. High Noon's a good one.
Oh yeah, it was funny you should
Yeah.
mention that because obviously John Wayne famously hated High Noon, and so did John Ford, I think, because of it kind of the whole thing about nobody helping the main character, and it was very un-American or whatever the correct term is. And they wasn't didn't they make a film that was a kind of answer to High Noon? I can't remember which one it was. Um,
Mm.
I can't remember now because Ford's made so many great westerns, but I can't remember what it was. But he famously hated that, didn't he? Obviously, he's
Yeah,
in the
I
searchers.
think you're right. Yeah, I can't remember. We talked about that in like in film class like a long time ago. But are you a big fan of like Marvel movies, like superhero stuff?
Not so much. I mean, I appreciate them. I've probably liked everyone I watched, but they're just not really my kind of thing.
Okay.
It's one of those. They're just kind of popcorn films for me. I'll watch them and I think, okay, that was good. There are some that are really good, and some
No,
that
yeah,
I'm looking for.
I
I mean, I like this the new one, the new Spider-Man. I'm actually looking forward to that one. I haven't actually seen it yet. I
I
fell
totally
ill.
agree. I'm not really into superheroes or anything like that, but some of them I'll watch. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I don't consider them movies. I think they're just a cash grab, and it's just special effects and green screen and stunts, and I don't know, like fight sequences. It's not acting. I feel like it's just more like a performance. It's like a fight in a
Yeah, I
way.
mean, they're conveyor belt movies. They're made to make money and just to
Oh,
appease as
100% they
many
are.
people as possible to get the bums in the seats.
Yeah.
That's like Scorsese even said that he doesn't
Hmm.
consider themselves movies, doesn't he? Something like that.
Yeah.
He said there's those kind of movies, and then there's the real movies, something along
Yeah,
those
which
lines.
which is true. I mean, I understand what he's saying. I mean, I'm not a big superhero fan, but I saw the new Spider-Man movie. I won't spoil anything, but I thought that was like one of the best superhero movies of all time.
I've heard, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
because I really like the Sam, because I kind of grew up with them. I like the Sam Raimi ones, and Doctor Octopus is my favorite villain, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to watch this one so bad. And I know because I can't say that without acknowledging the hypocrisy of me saying that because I know I always complain about how so many movies are nostalgia bait these days. They especially with Disney and Marvel and Star Wars,
Oh
they
yeah,
they always bring back characters
The
that are
Matrix and
famous
stuff
and
like that.
established. And but I
Kind of like the
know
Many Saints
I'm
of
taking the
Newark.
bait here. Yeah, many Saints of Newark, prime
Oh, it
example.
is now. It's all about nostalgia and because grabbing the people like us who were kids in the 2000s, right? And trying to get their childhood back, I guess you could say.
Mm. So you should make videos on these old films because there's not enough people on YouTube talking about this kind of stuff. Like we're
Yeah.
talking about, it's all superheroes and all those kind of films.
Yeah, no, I thought about doing a review about that movie Capone.
All right, yeah, I did a review of that as well.
Yeah, I heard
That was not so
it was
good.
bad. Yeah, so I want to check that out. And Lansky, of course, with John Magaro, and yeah,
Yeah, Lansky was. I mean, I liked Harvey Keitel in it, but it didn't have much meat to it. I actually spoke to the director of that film a few times.
wow.
Um,
Ethan Rockaway.
yeah, I
Wow.
think the film is based on his father actually interviewing the real life Meyer Lansky. So there's a bit of a personal connection there for him.
Wow.
But he was a nice guy. You know, we spoke a couple of times online. But I think what happened was I said, you know, could I, like, you know, is there an opportunity here for an interview or something? And the kind of insinuation I got was yes, but if you give my film a good review, kind of thing. So when it came out, I was in a dilemma in my head because I didn't like the film. I thought it was okay. It wasn't terrible, especially when you consider so many the kind of mob movies we get these days, which are rubbish. But you know, I didn't want to be a
That's what I
sellout.
talked about today. Like
Yeah,
they're dying. It's
yeah,
like they're a dying breed. I mean, even The Irishman, I thought was just like okay. It was too in a movie like that, I thought it was too long.
wow, really?
Yeah, I mean, the de aging effect. It didn't really, to me, it didn't really look like it worked at all. I mean, Robert De Niro when he's kicking that man, I haven't
Yeah,
seen the film in a long time,
that's
but
the
when he's
scene that
kicking that
everybody
person,
brings up with the Irishman.
yeah, yeah, he's like
Sticks out
kicking
like
that
a sore
guy. It's
thumb.
like, yeah, he doesn't really look younger at all. So, I mean, it was okay. It doesn't have any memorable lines, The Irishman to me. I mean,
Right.
maybe it doesn't really have any memorable scenes. Something like a Goodfellas or Casino that you say, casually, here's a leg and a wing, or ever since I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster, stuff like that. I mean, I do like the scene where it's kind of a sadder mob film too. The Irishman when they're older and they're eating the bread, they're dunking it in the
Mm.
wine, and they say,
Yeah,
"Oh,
that's kind of the whole
no
point
one."
because that scene kind of epitomizes the entire thing behind the Irishman, that they're all old and wrinkly now, and it's kind
It
of,
kind of
yeah, that's the vantage point. It's old mobsters looking back on their lives once they've done
right.
all the killings, and now that they're old and in wheelchairs, you know, them reconciling the guilt and all that kind of stuff. So it's a different
In
kind of mob film. It's one of
in a
those where I
way, it
think,
could
again, if you're expecting Goodfellas or Casino, and then Scorsese makes a film like this, where it's 70-year-old men sitting around in old people's homes, you know, thinking about the past, you might end up getting disappointed.
right. In a way, it could also like looking at it now when they are aging. It could also be like a Scorsese's promoting or showing it like a metaphor of how the mob films are dead or they're dying. This is
Yeah,
maybe he's saying this is the last mob film because no, maybe he's the king of the. I mean, not maybe he is the king of the mafia genre and saying this is the last one. I mean, if anyone wants to tackle it their own, go ahead. But it's kind
yeah,
of
that
interesting.
definitely,
You kind of
definitely.
brought that up. And
That's
kind
one
of
of the whole selling points behind the film. It's like this is just one last ride with all these classic mob guys: Keitel, De Niro, Pacino, Pesci out of
yeah,
retirement. It's like we're gonna go on one, you know, we're gonna have one
one
big
last
final
hurrah.
mob movie, and then that's it. It's waving goodbye. And the what the film itself is about is also kind of like, you know, waving goodbye. And it's even if you don't like the film itself, I like what it represents, as it's almost like a curtain closer. It's the swan song of the mafia genre. All these old guys just get a final chance to star in this one big gangster. I mean, one of my favorite things about The Irishman is the shot. So this is the final scene we ever see of Joe, because he's retired now, so he might never ever be in a movie again. So the final shot of Joe Pesci in a Scorsese film and a gangster in any film, full stop, is him being wheeled away in a wheelchair to the prison church, and it's just like an old sad figure with his glasses. He's had a stroke, so his
Yeah,
arm's doing this, and De Niro's just watching him. And that I remember taking a picture of that and putting it on my community tab, telling everyone that's the final shot of Joe Pesci in any movie ever. And it's, you know,
sad.
that's the charm of the film, in my opinion. Because I mean, like you said, it's not a perfect film. I probably liked it a lot more than you did, but it does have flaws. But what it represents is something that I really like. It's like the final mob film. You know,
Hmm.
these all these old guys who were in those films that we love. You know, Goodfellas, Casino, all those old films. Just having one last hurrah. especially seeing as though, like the mob genre, like we said, like, I mean, I don't know if you've seen John Travolta's uh Gotti movie,
I've
which was,
seen it.
I thought was really bad, and
One of the worst
really
movies ever.
it was embarrassing. If you were
Yeah,
Travolta and you were watching that,
yeah. I
he
talked
was.
about that today. Yeah,
Yeah. You did. You mentioned it, didn't you? Yeah. What about
yeah.
I don't know if you've seen Danny Beckis's Mob Town. That was one where it's about
No.
the Appalachian conference. The famous thing that happened in 1957. All the mobsters were meeting uh, in a big house in Appalachian, and the cops found out, and that was basically when the mafia got rumbled. That was when people finally realized
Oh, the
that, oh,
reorganization of the commission.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, that, I mean, that was not, I mean, the funny thing is I kind of I gave that film a really bad review, and the director of that film contacted me on email and started giving me shit for giving his
Wow.
film a bad review. That was funny because the guy who, I don't know if you remember, the guy who directed that film is actually in The Irishman. He played the deadbeat kind of guy who De Niro threatens with a gun. He owes Bobby Cannavale's character, and he keeps lying about his mum dying, and that's why he couldn't pay him. It's not a
Oh
major
yeah,
character.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so he actually directed that film. That's
Wow.
interesting. All these guys kind of know each other, I guess, from behind the scenes. And it's like the other guy I interviewed, he knew Steve Sharipa, who knows Robert De Niro because he hates him. And then it's just like all these, that's the kind of thing. There's a world there. And again, going back to The Irishman, it's that world kind of saying goodbye, because after this, there's no, even David Chase was saying that you couldn't make the Sopranos today. And I kind of thought, okay, he's probably going to cite political correctness reasons. But he said a weird reason. He said that you can't find those kind of authentic Italian American actors anymore.
He said there are none anymore.
Yeah,
He
and I
said
thought that's
he's
quite interesting
talking
because
about like
obviously I
looking
don't know if
around
that's
like
true or not.
Alessandro Nivola, and he said like there's no more Italian American actors in New York or New Jersey. But I thought so too, like what you were saying, like how he said you couldn't make it today because I mean it does hold up extremely well today, but some of the stuff is like kind of on the edge. The stuff with Noah, I don't think you could get get that to go into a show today. Maybe I don't know.
I would hope you can. You want that kind of authenticity because I mean, The Wire is the same. I'm watching that, and there's some things in there, like especially violence towards children, things like that, that will be really controversial today. But I
Mm.
think Chase was saying that he gave an example. He said something like, "There's one studio that won't let a female character use sex as a way to get something she wants. So you can't have that as a plot point in your TV show." So things like that. So he's saying that there are essentially political correctness reasons why you can't make a show like The Sopranos today. But I hope that there's certain companies out there or streaming platforms or whatever that can let guys who have that creativity to make something authentic. Because who wants a show like The Sopranos where you have all the nuance of it cut out? We don't want Tony Soprano to be a hero. Because have you heard the story of the I think it's episode College where he famously kills that rat. I think it's the first murder he ever commits, and HBO
That
pushed back against that. They didn't want that in the show. It's crazy to
yeah,
think because that's so integral.
that's the episode that changed everything forever,
Yeah, that's
as
so
we all
integral to his character. That
know.
showed us that this protagonist is going to be nothing like anything we've seen on television.
And then yeah, and it also changed television forever because before that, like television was, um, I mean, that was 1999. So before that, television was like uh, sitcoms like Friends, and then it
Mm.
was Ellen had her own show, you know, Reba, like stuff like that. It was just, and then HBO came along with The Sopranos and ultimately changed everything forever. That's why everyone says without The Sopranos, there's no Breaking Bad, there's no Game of Thrones, there's no Walter White, there's no Wire, there's no Oz, there's no Peaky Blinders. So
Yeah, and obviously one of the kind of lesser talked about things, going back to kind of political correctness and could you make it now, could you not, is that The Sopranos is set in modern day times. You can make a show like Boardwalk Empire and show like certain attitudes towards people of certain ethnicity or women or things like that, and you can say, okay, that's in the past. But The Sopranos is brave enough, brazen enough to say, no, this is happening right now, kind of thing, which obviously is
that's
more
what makes it
difficult to do.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we watch the characters grow up. It's like with the current times and events. Like it's like Tony opens that newspaper in episode 1 and it's talking about Clinton says something will happen in year 2000. We see AJ playing Nintendo 64, and then like as he grows up, he's on an Apple computer, and it's awesome. And
Yeah,
that's what
and
makes it so when I have
later
so
seasons
many thoughts
reference.
like in plan for future videos and about that stuff too, and
Cool.
awesome.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna say like later seasons reference like 9/11 and all these kind of things and how it impacts
yeah.
the characters, especially AJ. Who
It
just
impacts Tony too.
yeah, and it's that kind of real life aspect. They
Hmm.
growing up and they're moving forward while because I didn't watch The Sopranos during its original run. It was before I wasn't into TV shows then. I didn't know much about them, but
Yeah,
I
me
can
neither.
imagine it must have
I
been
was too
amazing.
young.
I don't. Did you watch it on its? Uh,
No, I was like when it first aired, I was like 3, and
right.
when it was in like season 6 or 7, I would have been like 10 years old. So
Right, because I mean,
couldn't watch it
it
then.
must have been amazing because you kind of grow with the characters to an extent.
Hmm.
I imagine, and especially seeing them grow. Like, AJ is a tiny little kid in season one, and by season six, he's practically a grown man. So much has happened to him. He's gone through so much, and he's a well. What do you think of AJ then? What do you think of him as a character? Because he's another one that people have a lot of varied opinions about him.
Yeah. Honestly, he was really annoying, but the acting by Robert Eiler is like tremendous. I mean, he plays it so well. And my favorite scene of all time in the Sopranos is him and Tony when he tries to stab Uncle Junior, and they cry outside the police station. He says, "Oh well, every time we watch Godfather, you say your favorite scene is when Michael Corleone kills those guys who killed his father." And he's like, "You're a hypocrite," and he starts crying. He's like, "You don't know anything about me," and like he is
Mm.
just so brilliant in that scene, and that is my favorite scene of all time, hands down. Like I don't know, because I was listening to it with Robert Eiler on the podcast, and he was saying how James Gandolfini was like, you better get his shot, his side first, opposed to mine, because I don't know how much longer he can do that, because it was just brilliant, and they were all blown away. I think they said they did it in like one take.
Wow.
Yeah, and the Furio scene too, where he bats the thing in the tanning salon, and they said that they are running out of film, and they said that was done once. I was like, holy cow, that is amazing.
Yeah, because you forget it was shot in film. Because unlike modern day TV shows, where they got digital, they can film as much as they want. It's
Mhm.
shot on film. You're using up stock while you're making this. But yeah, going back to AJ, I kind of agree with you. I always kind of found him to be a really annoying guy, but the acting was amazing because he really pissed me off. Especially the scenes like when he goes up the stairs and his mother falls down and he just looks at her and just carries on walking like that. Kind of, he was so spoiled and everything. But then there's the element where okay, who made him that way? Look at the way he's brought up. Look who his parents are. So can you
Look
really
how he was
blame him that
raised,
much?
like
I
very
mean,
spoiled.
yeah, David Chase said that he couldn't understand the hate, and that he said that AJ is kind of like just an average normal kid. But I didn't agree with the average normal kid part. I do understand people kind of hating AJ blindly without kind of contextualizing why he is the way he is, because there is reasons for the way he is. But at the same time, I can obviously see why you'd find him annoying, because I find him really annoying and really spoiled, and a lack of appreciation of what he has, all that kind of stuff. But again, like he's like with so many characters, he's so complex. You can make 5 video essays on him and you wouldn't be scratching the surface. Like with so many characters.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show like how deep the actors, brought these characters, or how they bring them to life. Like that we can think so many things about them. I mean, I thought with David Chase saying, he didn't understand the hate. It's very true. I mean, he's just a regular teenage boy. I mean, who didn't get into trouble, and who didn't, cause their parents to yell at them when they were growing up? I mean, not everyone smokes marijuana on their freaking confirmation, but yeah,
Yeah,
had a
no
lot of
worries.
fun.
I really appreciate you doing this and taking the time out. And yeah, I mean, it's been such a great experience. Been really fun talking to you, a fellow
Mm-hmm.
Sopranos fanatic. And yeah, like I said, I hope we can do this again sometime. So thank you again so much for doing this.
All good. Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I would love to just come on again and chat about film or
Awesome, no
anything.
worries. Yeah,
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you, and
No worries, pal. Thank you so much again. This was a great pleasure. And like you said, I hope we can talk in the future. Maybe put Sopranos to a side because I really enjoyed that little 10 minutes or so we were talking about older films because I don't get an opportunity to talk about those
Mm-hmm.
kind of films with people
Me
because
neither.
obviously nobody's watching those movies anymore.
Yeah. Freaking, I got one question to ask before I go. This past summer, uh, I'm Italian. Were you going for England in the Euro Cup?
Oh, well, I mean, I would have to obviously because I'm from
Yeah.
England, but from day one, I knew that Italy was the best side in the competition, and when they won, I thought, you know what, this team deserved to win. They should be. There can be no hard feelings because they won fair and square in the final, but also throughout the entire duration of the tournament, they were clearly the better team.
Oh,
Because
they were
I do
awesome.
follow football, soccer a lot,
Yeah.
and it just the structure of the team, uh, the
The
way they
coaching.
played, it was just this team deserves to win. It's one of those. There's never a case of, you talk about certain competitions. It's like, oh, that refereeing decision, or they got that penalty, or none of that. They deserve to win.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I was sorry if I brought up any bad memories, but yeah.
No worries. As an England fan, we're used to bad memories in sports
Yeah.
competitions.
Well, thank you so much. It was very nice meeting you, and hope to chat again soon. Stay safe and take care.
No worries. Take care. Thank you very much.